Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for Tech Takeoff. This is our second Monday in March Tech Takeoff. As you know, Mondays in March, we're doing these technical training sessions, ask Microsoft anything, learning sessions. And today we have a special Feedback Wanted session. We'll be talking about Feedback Wanted, about app management in the enterprise. My name is Joe Lurie. I am literally the least important person in this room today. So I'm going to introduce you to our special speakers. I'm going to start with Hina, and then we'll go to Nicole and then David. Hina, please introduce yourself. Tell us what you do at Microsoft.
Hello, everyone. I'm Hina Makwan. I'm a product leader on the enterprise management space and the security side of the house. The experience I've had at Microsoft has been primarily on the Windows management side, as well as some cybersecurity experience in the last few years working on Security Copilot. My current role is primarily focused on getting Windows devices to the cloud so that we can unlock the true potential and the true value in the cloud. And happy to be here with all of you.
Thanks, Hina. Nicole.
Hi, I'm Nicole Zhao. I'm a product manager on Windows apps and enterprise app management.
And David.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. This is David Geyer, and I've been helping out in Intune for almost 5 years now. Started doing a lot of work in Windows updates, but over the last couple of years, I've been transferring over to helping out in the app update world, and lately been working on our new application inventory, and excited to get a little bit more information on that from y'all today.
Great. As I said, this session, typically when you see me hosting, or if you see David or Nicole here, and Hina, we're so happy to have you as well, but you see us asking, it's an Ask Microsoft Anything. You're asking questions, we're giving you answers. And today we're going to be talking to you instead, asking for your feedback. And the feedback that we're going to be asking for are things like, are you moving from Configuration Manager to Intune? And if you're not, why not? And we'll ask things about app inventory and how do you keep it wrapped up to date. But for right now, would love to know, when you are moving from Configuration Manager to Intune, or again, if you're not, what's the hardest app-related blockers preventing you from going cloud first? Really, we want to know, why haven't you moved to Intune yet? Why haven't you moved that Configuration Manager client apps workload to Intune yet? So again, what are some of the hardest app-related blockers preventing you from going cloud first? And I do see from Tech Community, we've got a comment. Is there a plan to provide more visibility to the supersedence portion of app deployment? For example, I have an app that I deploy and update that supersedes an existing deployment. If I deploy an app that supersedes both the update and the original deployment, then weeks later and go back and delete the original deployment, I have to find the app that's preventing the deletion because of the supersedence relationship. In SCCM or in Configuration Manager, I can at least see the offending app. In Intune, I'm not able to, other than there's a supersedence rule applied. So Nicole, I know we have the supersedence chain. I forget what we actually call it in Intune. Do you want to talk about that? Like, how do I find which app is being superseded, and I try to delete one and I can't because of a supersedence chain? I know this isn't a Ask Microsoft Anything, but there is something we can do with that, right?
Yeah, I think that's really great feedback. Supersedence is definitely an area that we're continuing to improve on. And the feature that Joe's talking about, it's called Relationship Viewer.
Yes,
it's Relationship Viewer. So you can see when you open an app in the app view, you can see kind of which apps it depends on and which apps it supersedes. So you can see the dependency and supersedence relationships. That should help a bit, but for sure, when one of the apps, the offending app that, as it's called, is gone, it makes the relationship much harder, and definitely something that is valuable in SCCM, and we'll investigate that.
Yeah, thanks, Nicole. And Brian followed up on that on Tech Community, our friend Brian. Also, what about dependencies? So we're talking about supersedence in the relationship viewer. What about dependencies? You can see down the chain, but not up. And as I'm modifying an app, it would be good to know which other apps depend on it.
Yeah, it's great feedback.
So yeah, so again, we're getting a lot of feedback about, the relationship viewer. I think Danny created that a year ago, maybe a year and a half ago, because of feedback like this. So keep that feedback coming on how we can improve on that relationship viewer. Meta Tech Community is also commenting, what about adding the running process check like Configuration Manager before upgrading or superseding an app? If the native app is running, alert the user first. And I know this is something that we get feedback on, the running processes. How do we know? And David, I'm going to come to you on this one. Any comments about what we're doing in the space for like the running application processes before doing that app upgrade?
Yeah, so I'm actually going to bounce this one right back to Nicole, because I know she's been working on this and has something to share about this, I think.
Yeah, I think definitely one of the top things that we've heard from the community on the top ask coming from moving from Configuration Manager to Intune. So very aware of this top ask, wondering if there's actually anything that tops this. So that would be very interesting to hear, but this is good feedback.
David, the reason I actually went to you first was I wasn't sure if that was going to have anything to like tie into your app inventory. You need to know what processes are running or processes each app has. So that's why I went to you first. So just in case you had anything to share on that, if it all ties in together. If not, that's no problem either.
Yeah. Well, I think what you're alluding to is knowing what those processes might be or what
Exactly.
the X's are
Yep.
for the app. And there's some interesting challenges in trying to include that in app inventory. It is definitely something that I'm looking into. We're looking at several different methods to maybe try to resolve that, to enable us to bring that data in. It's a little further out, and it's not something that we have specific plans on at this point. But we totally appreciate, like, the value of that information is very high. It's more than just knowing what X's maybe to look for in a running process type scenario. But it allows you to connect the dots with app control policies, be able to identify things that are running a little bit more easily, and pull in other types of data that are associated with the running X's that are different from when you look at add remove programs and the way that apps are registered there. So very aware of that challenge, and it is something we are hoping that we're going to be able to bring something to the table on, but it is not a simple problem.
Yeah, for sure. We got a new topic on ConfigMgr to Intune. And this is some of this feedback, part of my role, I do talk to customers every day. And one of my responsibilities is advocating for feedback. And so I talk to my customers, I talk to David and Nicole all the time. And this is something that we've seen before. We get this kind of feedback a lot. And so please continue to give us this feedback. Will there ever be a way to create a dynamic group of devices that have a particular program installed in Intune? I have this set up in ConfigMgr, and it helps with program deployment. In other words, taking the inventory of all the devices that have whatever.exe installed and creating a dynamic group out of those. Are we doing any work, or have we started any investigation on creating those types of dynamic groups based on app inventory?
Absolutely. Yes, we have. It is one of the most common points of feedback for app inventory. In fact, when I ask a lot of folks, what are the actions you want to do with app inventory? The very first one is, I want to create a group. I want to manage a group based off of the existence or the lack of an app on a device. And so we are looking into that. And one of the things that I'm interested in finding out a little bit more about is there's a lot of information about apps that can become available in an inventory. What of those fields would actually be interesting or useful in creating that dynamic group? Obviously, name, publisher, version, float to the top in a hurry. Are there other fields that you'd use in order to differentiate which devices should be in that group or not in that group, filtered in or filtered out, perhaps? That would be helpful to us so that we can start to think about how we might integrate and just how deeply we integrate with inventory. Because usually using all fields may create some scaling or performance impacts. So obviously we want to find the right balance there. So knowing what fields are the most useful can help us to potentially make something available sometime in the future if we're able to pull all that together.
That's a great question. For everyone that's watching this on something other than tech community, you can answer David's question and reply to his feedback request by going to aka.ms/feedback/@management and give us that, what besides for the name of the XE or the name of the app, the name of the publisher, the version, what else is important to you if you were to create that dynamic group? What else is important to you from the properties of the application itself? Thanks, David, for asking. Again, aka.ms/feedback/@management to give David some of that feedback. All right, so another question that we got, and I love getting questions like this one because I can give my little asterisk at the end of asking this question. But another question is about most of our applications are migrated to Intune from Configuration Manager. We expect that. However, we have some rather large packages like AutoDesk applications. Some take up to 25 to 30 gig, and we prefer to push via Configuration Manager since it's typically much faster than going from the internet. And then Sinan gave similar feedback. We deploy big AutoCAD or big CAD software, 100 gigs in size via SCCM. How do we do that with Intune? And I know that when we talk about AutoDesk and Sinan talk about CAD software, those are examples of large packages. But I do want to give my little asterisk that if you go to the website for AutoCAD, they actually don't want you deploying through any MDM because it's such large, complex packages. Those softwares, at least last I looked, they didn't support any MDM, not just Intune. They don't support the deployment via MDM. But that said, we know our customers do deploy via MDM. So Nicole, or even Hina, if you can jump in, some of these larger packages, it's good feedback because even some of our customers that have like Microsoft 365 apps with every language pack installed, so they're looking at a 20 gig package of Office that they're trying to deploy. What are we doing about that? How do I get that? I want to go cloud first, and I'm having trouble going cloud first because of my larger packages. That's the kind of feedback that I read here from tech community.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, when we started on this Intune journey, the large app deployment was definitely one of the largest adoption blockers, as you can imagine, right? SCCM does this really, really well. Our solution in the cloud with Zero Trust has been to use CDN and delivery optimization. This is core capability within Intune that you can use to package your Win32 apps, convert them into a package, the .intune win format using the Win32 content prep tool. And once you do that, you can then host the content on the Azure CDN. And what delivery optimization does as a way of delivering this data is chunks the large files into downloadable chunks, sizes, and delivers that to the end device, the end user device. And it also has capabilities such as resuming if there is an error or a failure. It also can support peer-to-peer sharing in some networks. But all of these capabilities then help optimize the delivery of large apps to the end devices. If this is something you haven't tried, definitely let us know, because if there are issues in this pipeline, then that's worrisome. But we have seen success that customers have had with this mechanism.
Thanks, Hannah. And just for clarity, the CDN you're talking about, CDN means content distribution network, just to make sure everyone understands what we're talking about here. And delivery optimization is a great tool to use when we're talking about things like that. So thank you for that. We're going to move over to, yep, go ahead, David.
Yeah. If I could just kind of build on what Hina was saying and ask, especially in the comments, tell us a little bit more about why the speed of delivery is important. So I can appreciate where that becomes kind of really interesting if you're installing from company portal and you're kind of interactively installing as an end user. But if Intune is installing the app in the background through delivery optimization in order to minimize use of internet channels and provide those other benefits that DO does, why does the speed of the download matter? What are those scenarios? I'd love to understand a little bit more about that. Beyond that company portal scenario where your end user is right there and trying to say, I need that app now. Totally get that one. But aside from that, are there other scenarios where that matters?
That's again a great question. aka.ms feedback /app management to answer that. And why is speed important to you? Again, we know why if they're actively pulling it down, but if Intune is pushing it down in the background and the user doesn't see it happening, why is speed important? All right, we're going to go ahead and move over to app creation and operational simplicity. How much time do you spend on getting an app ready to deploy? If you are doing as Hina had recommended, you're packaging this as an Intune WIN file, or using enterprise app management that Nicole owns, how much time do you spend on getting an app ready to deploy? And what would cloud native app management mean to you for your day-to-day work? And this is some of the questions I would love to find out. There's some feedback on. So what David was asking before, why speed important on pulling it down, but how much time do you spend on actually packaging the app? That's where I think the speed might be better, packaging the app, but you want to make sure it's right. David, do you have any comments on, or Nicole, actually, I'll start with you, on that packaging process even, or if you want to talk about EAM and how that already saves you time from the packaging process.
Yeah, so EAM, which stands for Enterprise App Management, is our curated enterprise Win32 app catalog. So instead of having to package all of the apps yourself with the .intune WIN file, you can go and browse this list of like hand-selected Win32 apps that are ready for the enterprise. So that's already reducing the app packaging time for both installing and for updating. But I'm curious to hear if there's anything in that process that doesn't work for you today, or can be improved to make it quicker, or if packaging is not the thing that's slowing you down right now.
Yeah, thanks, Nicole. In the enterprise app management, and if you haven't heard, enterprise app management as part of our Intune suite is being rolled into, being included in your Microsoft 365 E5 licenses. So those licenses you probably already own. So it's not even anything extra that you probably don't need this extra license. All right, from tech community, we got another question about the inclusion of bespoke Microsoft 365 apps. And the question is, and it's a fairly long question, folks, so I apologize. You have to listen to my Boston accent for a long time for this question. The inclusion of bespoke Microsoft 365 apps, app type is useful and simplifies deployment of the Microsoft 365 apps to endpoints. However, the process of adding an individual app to a pre-existing install is not smooth. For example, where the company-based profile excludes Microsoft Access, but some users later require access, it's tricky to add only access when the suite is already installed, largely because users have at least one of the Microsoft 365 apps open at all times, which blocks configuration changes. That is something that's not even new to Intune. That's something that's been going on forever. It's also feasible to have users self-service via company portal, since infeasible to, or not possible, to have users self-service via company portal, since the apps are all delivered as a single bundle. This adds to the request for adding support for running processes handling natively in Intune. So I actually see a couple of pieces of feedback in there. One, I see, as they say, the request for adding support for running processes, so you know which processes are running as you try to add access as an example. But also, we have the bundle. If you go to the app types, we see the Microsoft 365 app bundle, as they call it. But we don't have it individually. You couldn't install only Excel or only Access or only Project from there. So I see that kind of feedback as well out of this question. Nicole, what do you have to say about this one, or the kind of feedback that you're reading out of this question?
Yeah, I think maybe let's jump to Hina for this one. Might have more context, but the running app processes in native to Intune is definitely, I see that piece of feedback.
Yeah, no, this is a problem that exists outside of Intune, as Joe alluded to. The way we can mitigate or work around some of these issues, where when an app is coming down, and before it comes down, the end user has a disruptive flow where they are notified to either turn off existing apps or do something else. We want to be able to then build a build a platform that can help the end users get that notification so that the disruption of their flow can be managed better by them, right? Like this is something that we see with Office updates in general. Anytime you get a new Office update, you're told to go turn off all the Office apps, but you can defer that by a few minutes. And it's not like, more than 24 hours, but maybe 60 minutes or so you can defer that. So we want to build provisions like these within the Intune platform so that you can have deferrals that the end user can control, and that way we can give some control back. We can definitely not give all the control back because certain apps will require shutting prior apps off. Certain app installations will require a reboot, and those are something, again, that can be minimized upstream with changing how packaging is done. We know that a lot of professionals and IT admins have introduced reboots as part of their legacy way of packaging, and there is effort going on even within their own systems to repackage stuff to reduce the number of reboots, as an example. So where I was going with this is, yes, we can solve this problem through multi-pronged approach. One is to reduce the number of interruptions that can come, like if we have introduced reboots or checks on apps, and if those can be eliminated upstream, that should be the first sort of course of action. But we know that that cannot be done for all the apps. So we understand that we need to build within Intune the ability to defer certain actions and notify the user appropriately.
It's great feedback for the question. And Hannah, thank you so much. It's a really good answer for that on how we can, how we might be able to see this happening. So thank you so much for that. We got a question, I'm not sure who can answer this one, about app control for business. So I'm just going to read out the question or the feedback from Microsoft Tech Community. Can you work on integrating app discovery with app control for business? My concern is that our endpoints already have a large number of apps installed through previous deployment processes. And even so, with managed installer allowed, that does not cover previously deployed apps, which then get blocked. The whole app control for business side of Intune would be much easier to deploy if that team was totally looped in with the teams building the app deployment, app inventory, and app updates for Intune. So because I do have the team here building at least the app inventory, David, and the app packaging, Nicole and Hina, when we talk about app control for business and what's allowed to be run or what's allowed to be installed, I read this feedback as we would love to have that integration so that anything that's being installed, anything that's being packaged, or if it's got an inventory, maybe create that app control for business policy, perhaps. David, how do you read this question any differently?
Yeah, so I know, I think we're looking at it similarly. And what I can say is I definitely see the value of starting from app inventory, using the information about what apps are deployed throughout the tenant, are deployed throughout the organization that might become interesting to app control. And starting from app inventory to be able to start that app control policy creation is one of the things that's on my list of scenarios to try to understand a little deeper and to kind of build that flow up. I talked a little bit earlier about, boy, we'd love to have XE information in inventory if we're able to figure out how to make that come together. And app control is one of the reasons for that. It's the base information you need and information about that app and the XEs that are running, certificates, things like that, that we want to bring that information in the cloud to just make it that much easier to create the app control policies. Beyond that, I've got a lot to learn about app control policies, how inventory is going to integrate. So it's really helpful to hear that there's some interest in that. So this might be a good time to pass the virtual football here over to Nicole and see what she can add on top of that.
Yeah, I've never heard that before, virtual football. It's funny. From the app control side, I know it was mentioned that the apps don't get tagged before the managed installer policy is applied. And that's a known limitation for app control for business. So that's definitely something that I'm happy to hear feedback on and happy to take note of. Like David said, we're David and I will work together to make sure app control and app inventory have a cohesive story. So it's really interesting to hear this feedback for the complete app story.
Yeah. I have to say that this went by so fast that we have so many topics we didn't get to. We wanted your feedback on ConfigMgr, Intune, and app creation and simplicity, but also app inventory. We wanted your feedback on security and trust and AI readiness. And we have a lot of topics we're actually going to put in the chat here. So if you don't mind, if you all just keep giving us that feedback, aka.ms/feedback/ app management, look for these other topics and keep providing us your feedback. And of course, even if it's not one of these topics, if you have feedback about app management in the enterprise and not just Windows apps, well, of course, we support apps on Mac OS, iOS, iPad OS, Android devices. We have some Linux support as well, although I don't think for apps, but we have some Linux support. Any feedback that you have for us, please give us feedback at aka.ms/feedback/app management. Other feedback, of course, aka.ms/Intune feedback. I'm going to start handing off thank you for putting that up to our producers, aka.ms/Intune feedback. I'm going to hand off for our final words and our final goodbyes. I'm going to go backwards from where we started. So we're going to go from David to Nicole to Hannah. David, any final thoughts?
I just thank you for the feedback. We're going to be following the chat session throughout the week, and you may just get a quick, hey, thank you for that. And that truly means thank you for your feedback. I think there's going to be a lot for us to go through that we're going to be trying to collect and organize. And we're looking forward to that. Feedback is gold and it's a gift. And we always enjoy having the opportunity to talk to customers and find out what's top of mind. It does help us prioritize. It does help us rethink ideas. Thank you so much.
Thanks, David. Nicole, final thoughts?
Yeah, just +1 to what David said. Feedback is always valuable for us, and happy to hear all this new and feedback we've heard before. Just everything helps. And like I kind of said in the last thing was, we're continuing to build this cohesive app story. So happy to get everyone working together on that.
Thanks, Nicole. And Hannah?
Yeah, +1 to again what David and Nicole just said. Thank you for the feedback. That is where we learn the most, and we can then bring the value that we need to bring collectively to our customers. The only other thing I'll add is, I think most of you have been with us in this journey to the cloud for more than 7-8 years now, right? When we first introduced co-management, we introduced Intune, and we've been chipping away at the problem of moving these workloads to the cloud. And I just wanted to kind of share broadly that we are seeing more and more uptick from customers going cloud native and betting on the fact that we can work through whatever, small or big gaps there are and work through those. So I think my call to action, in addition to providing feedback, is like really think cloud first, really think zero trust first, and work backwards from there, which may require you to think about, changing your own processes a little bit, building on some of the modern techniques, especially from a packaging standpoint, using the EM catalog that Nicole told you about. That is a really good way to minimize your packaging costs. And if you don't see the apps that you need for your enterprise on the EM catalog, please provide feedback on that as well on the feedback channel, because Nicole and team are working on adding more and more apps to that catalog. So that feedback mechanism, like the feedback mechanism we have here, can really help bolster that story as well. And the other really important area that we are investing, as you can tell, is work that David is doing in terms of telemetry. And collecting telemetry, collecting that as near real time as we can and as complete as we can, so that we can give a lot more operational value back to you. So please provide that feedback as well.
Thanks so much. Yep. Thank you, everyone. This was amazing. So much great feedback. We actually might need to do a follow-up session on all this. Not in these Mondays in March, but a follow-up session. Up next, if you're watching us live, Ready Day 1, how to get Windows users up running fast. Again, my name is Joe Lurie. Thanks for watching.